Protests in several parts of Nigeria for those who have been kidnapped, abducted by terrorists in Oyo State. And the Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, is asking the federal government to declare state of emergency on security. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimale for you here in Abuja. Let's tell you that President Bola Tinubu has returned to Abuja after the Eid al-Kabir holiday, which he observed in Lagos, during which he undertook a series of political, governmental, and national engagement. The president is said to have arrived at about 5:17 p.m. and was received by some members of the heads of government and some of his cabinet members, which include the NSA, the Inspector General of Police, and his Chief of Staff, Femi Gbajabiamila. During the holiday period, the president received his vice, several groups of people, governors, members, and leaders of the National Assembly. And today we saw a very major applause for Nigeria on the international stage. Perhaps Africa is having a louder voice at the United Nations, and the representation of Nigeria is gaining more grounds, and probably we are moving closer to getting the attention Nigeria needs at the Security Council and at the General Assembly. Today, Nigeria's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Jimoh Ibrahim, has emerged as the chairman of the United Nations Fifth Committee, which handles budget, finance, and administration. The election held today on the floor of the General Assembly, and it was announced thereafter. Let me allow you to listen to this very interesting and very proud moment when a Nigerian is being mentioned, and the manner in which he's being mentioned is what really caught my attention. Take a listen.
The global system is characterized by rising geopolitical tension and economic difficulties, which has contributed to increasing poverty, poor governance, stemming from inadequate responses to increasing disruptive technology innovation. For that exacerbate those ideas, leadership has become a central focus of the global development agenda. It's essential that we respond proactively, otherwise the ecosystem will act on our behalf. The current moment demands action that treats knowledge, development, and strategic response to insecurity, development, and leadership. As a member of the Budget and Appropriation Committee of the 10th Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and chair of the Interparliamentary Relations, I hope to utilize my word of experience in forging consensus during the pivotal time in history. We look forward to the founding father of the United Nations to guide in fostering collaboration and cooperation towards our shared goals. Our aim is to support a vibrant and sustainable United Nations, where the Fifth Committee will focus on stewardship and corporate governance, prioritizing a thoughtful, hope-driven budget for all humanity over merely transactional cost management. I also solicited to collaborate with each of you and to learn from your leadership.
All right, that's the Ambassador Jimoh Ibrahim, the proud moment when Nigeria holds a very important role. It's going to be chairing Committee on Finance, Administration, and Budget. That's a congratulations to Nigeria and to Ambassador Jimoh Ibrahim. There's so much to tell you tonight about the state of the nation and what is going on in our country today. But before we get started, let's serve you with some of your political roundup stories.
President of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, has kick-started plans to launch the National Security Summit following the death of teachers and abduction of school children in Oyo State. Senator Akpabio, who spoke during plenary as the Senate resumed from Sallah and political party primary elections recess, Senator Akpabio, who spoke during plenary as the Senate resumed from Sallah and political party primary election recess, directed the Senate leader, Senator Kwame Bamidele, to fix a date for the proposed National Security Summit, asserting that the upper chamber must engage in serious discussions aimed at finding lasting solutions to the nation's security challenges. He further cautioned politicians against exploiting the country's security challenges for political advantage as he led lawmakers in observing a minute's silence for victims of the recent abduction of the school children and teachers in Oyo State. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has commenced an investigation into allegations of unauthorized access to its continuous voter registration database following the publication of information relating to a candidate in a recent political party primary election in the Federal Capital Territory. In a statement issued on Tuesday, the National Commissioner and Chairman of the Information and Voter Education Committee, Mohammed Haruna, said the Commission was treating the matter with utmost seriousness. The National Democratic Institute is asking young West Africans to build networks, engage political leaders, and save democracy in the region. The call for young people to get more involved in democratic processes was made at the Next Generation Regional Youth Symposium in Abuja. The conference, which attracted young people from West African member states, discusses how to dismantle barriers that prevent young people from actively participating in politics. The African Democratic Congress in Kaduna State has concluded its electoral appeal process for the recent party primaries. The ADC Kaduna State Electoral Appeal Committee, set up by the party's National Working Committee, says it has reviewed all appeals in line with party guidelines and certified the final list of winners. According to the committee chairman, Mohammed Fage, Shuaibu Mikati has been declared leader of the Kaduna State governorship primary after polling the highest lawful votes for the House of Representatives. Tukro Salisu Kakei emerged winner for Zaria Federal Constituency. The committee added that where elections were inconclusive, a rerun will be conducted.
Where fighting and injuries take place, destruction of the electoral material take place also. What the law says that place will be cancelled, the run will take place.
The Action Alliance has nominated its national chairman, Adekunle Rufai Omaje, as its presidential candidate for the 2027 general election. Delegates from all 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory unanimously adopted Omaje as the party's presidential candidate at the primary election, which was monitored by officials of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and security agencies. In his acceptance speech, Omaje assured Nigerians of an improved economy and an end to insecurity in the country if the Action Alliance takes over the reins of governance.
There you have it. You've been served with your political roundup stories. So today we saw in several parts of the country, teachers and pupils, parents took to the streets of Nigeria, and the National Union of Teachers NUT led the call across the streets of the country, asking for the rescue of the abducted persons in the Oyo school abductions. The Nigerian Union of Teachers staged rallies in several parts of the country, and the demonstration followed a peaceful protest by civil groups in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, earlier on Monday, which participants demanded the immediate rescue of the abducted victims in Ibadan. The nationwide protest by teachers began on a solemn note, and we saw that also happen in several parts of the country. The rally was peaceful in several parts of the country, and government officials were seen addressing the protesters in Kano, in Oyo, and in other parts of the country. We've seen some of the protesters. And afterwards, the Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, is calling on the federal government to declare a state of emergency on insecurity across the country, citing the rising incidents of killings, kidnappings, terrorist attacks, and the destruction of communities. This forms part of the resolutions reached by the association, their National Church Denominational Leaders Summit held in Abuja. Take a listen to them.
CAN expresses profound alarm over the escalating violence across Nigeria, including killings, kidnappings, abductions, terrorist attacks, and the destruction of communities. CAN condemns in the strongest terms the barbaric acts of murder, beheading, torture, rape, abduction, and forced displacement being perpetrated against innocent citizens, and calls on the federal government to declare a state of emergency on security across the country.
Earlier today, we also saw the National Assembly, especially in the House of Representatives, asking for the rescue of the pupils. The members of the House of Reps are calling on the federal government and security agencies to bring the abducted students and teachers of the Baptist Nursery and Primary School, Community Grammar School in CLA in Yawota, and Early Primary School in Oyo back home alive. What is troubling is the trend and the manner in which this has happened. It looks so much like the modus operandi of some groups, extreme group in some part of Nigeria, especially in the northeast region of the country. They operated in some north central and northwestern region of the country. But this happening in the heart of Nigeria, southwest, means a lot. And what does this mean exactly? Let's speak with a man who is an expert in violent extremism and on extremism policy, a lawyer and a security consultant. Bulama Bukati is live for us virtually tonight. Mr. Bukati, thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's indeed heart-wrenching and troubling. What we have seen is a scenario not so unfamiliar with us. We've seen school kidnappings and abductions in several parts of the country. In the northwestern region of the country seems to have received the most heat when it comes to school abductions. And the question a lot of people will be asking is, are schools safe for our children? And there are a lot of policies the government have made over the past years at our administration about how to secure school. The Safe School Initiative was initiated at some point, but has it worked? But the fundamental issue here, Mr. Bukati, I'm worried. This looks like the fingerprints and handwriting of ISWAP or allied and associate groups. What do you make of the modus operandi that we saw in Oyo State?
Yeah, I mean, Sheon, you are right. As you said in the introduction, what is happening in our country is very, very worrying. And whatever we have been doing over the past 12 years to keep our schools safe is clearly not working. But to start with your question, the Nigerian Army headquarters has said that this abduction in Oyo State is linked to Boko Haram. If it is Boko Haram that is responsible, then my theory or my best guess or informed analysis is that it will be the Sadiku group. The Sadiku group is led by someone called Abubakar Saidu, who is originally an indigenous of Borno State, but who was commissioned in 2014 by Abubakar Shekau, the then leader of Boko Haram / ISWAP, to travel from the northeastern part of Nigeria and establish a Boko Haram cell in north central Nigeria. And he was specifically asked by Shekau to go and court members of the Darul Islam. You remember the Darul Islam, which was an Orthodox Muslim group that isolated themselves in Makwa, Niger State, who were disbanded in 2009. I am sure everyone will remember the national story at the time when they were disbanded and quick notice was given to them by the Niger State government. Now, Sadiq was commissioned by Shekau, that is Abubakar Said was commissioned by Shekau to go and court those groups and recruit them into Boko Haram. Most members of the Darul Islam did not get recruited into Boko Haram, did not buy into Boko Haram's ideology, but many people amongst them, some of them agreed and they subscribed to Boko Haram's ideology. And now from that time on, Abubakar Saidu continued going back and forth between northeastern Nigeria, the Boko Haram epicenter, and north central Nigeria until he succeeded in establishing a Boko Haram camp in Niger State. They were originally in the Alawa forest, and then they recently moved to the Kainji National Park. And you know, from the Kainji National Park, you have many different routes that will lead you up to the old Oyo National Park. And if Boko Haram is responsible, then it is this group. I think they likely traveled from Kainji, the Kainji forest, into the old Oyo National Park, and then went and pounced on their victim. I agree with you that it is Boko Haram, classic Boko Haram modus operandi, is more likely to be the Sadiku group. The Sadiku group is allied to the Shekau faction of Boko Haram that is called JAS, Jama'atu Ahlus Sunnah Lid-Da'wati wal Jihad, rather than Islamic State West Africa Province.
But what is troubling with my research and talking to those who know the inner workings of ISWAP, the Director group, the Boko Haram group, is the fact that ideology and philosophy drive them. And what exactly also give them some kind of cover is the environment, which are caves, forests, which the northwestern region of the country and northeastern Nigeria really gives them and harbors them, which allows them to operate freely for several years. What I'm confused about is the motive, the philosophy, the ideology that has driven them to some part of the southwest Nigeria, especially this dastardly act they've committed in southwest Nigeria. Can you wrap your head around, based on your understanding, your research, and the knowledge that you have of this group, why the choice of Oyo State? Yes, you look at the route, but then how far can they go? Can the forest in southwestern, the vegetation and the forestry and the landscape in Oyo State harbor them for a longer time?
Yeah, I mean, so Sheun, there are lots of things in this question. Let's start with the ideology first. There is an ideological as well as logistical reason why Boko Haram started attacking schools. The first, let's remember that even the name Boko Haram means Western-styled education is forbidden in Islam, which is false. Now, Boko Haram, from the very beginning when they started their preaching in the early 2000s in Borno State, their first and major target when it comes to their violent rhetorics were schools. And then we saw them starting to attack schools. Even before the Chibok abduction, we saw dastardly attacks, gruesome attacks in places like Buniadi, where they killed 59 school children. They slaughtered 59 school children and burned some of them alive. And then we saw the Chibok kidnapping. And then we saw Dapchi, and then we saw other kidnappings, including the ones we saw in northwestern Nigeria, some of which are allied to Boko Haram, or in some of which Boko Haram was involved. So first is the ideology. But what Boko Haram also understood from the Chibok kidnapping in 2014 was that abducting school children can bring attention and can serve as a propaganda material for them. And of course, the Nigerian security forces have been saying, we are defeating Boko Haram, we have succeeded here, we have succeeded there, and there is some data showing that Boko Haram's fatality figures have fallen. What can they do to rile up sentiment? What can they do that can give them a propaganda material that will give them a golden ticket for propaganda? Attack an area of Nigeria that no one thought you can ever attack. And I think they did that for propaganda and also for them to demonstrate that they are still powerful and are able to penetrate areas we thought they may not be able to penetrate. So the second issue is propaganda. The third issue, Boko Haram also understood from the Chibok, the Dapchi, and other kidnappings they were involved in that they can make money out of school children, that they can force governments to negotiate with them, to pay them millions of dollars or pounds, as we saw in the Chibok kidnapping and other kidnappings in northeastern Nigeria. And also, they saw that they can use school kidnappings to force governments to free their commanders who are in detention. That's what happened in the case of the Chibok. For example, in Chibok, credible reports say the Buhari administration paid about 3 million euros for the release of the 100 and something Chibok girls that were released. But also we know that 5 senior Boko Haram commanders were released from custody as part of the Chibok deal. And so making profit is another reason. But also let's remember that these groups are opportunistic. And the opportunity here is their ability to travel through the forest in the Kainji area into the old Oyo National Park and target a school there. Of course, it may not be unrelated to the fact that they think this is an area that people think is safe, and therefore there is no security presence as in other areas of Nigeria, and therefore they launch their attack there. The final point you raised, Sheun, which is very important, is the role of the old Oyo National Park. Everywhere you see Boko Haram operating, that area has to be either a border region where security presence is weak, or it is a mismanaged forest or park. Whether it's the Zambiza forest, whether the Alawa forest, whether the Kainji National Park, or even when you go to places like Zampara Kasina, all of these bandits are operating in national parks and forests that have been mismanaged for years, and these have become their safe havens. And that's why Boko Haram was able to use the old Oyo National Park to launch this attack. And I can tell you, they would either harbor and keep those children inside the old Oyo National Park, or they will transport them to the Kainji forest, the Kainji park where they already have a camp, and will continue to hold them there.
Now, let me give some insight, because when this kind of situation happens, you look at the timing, and I quickly want us to wrap up this conversation because of my next interview. Let me look at the timelines, because people will say the very first few hours of this kind of incident are very crucial in the rescue operation, because if you do not allow them to make this movement happen, then you can be able to get the rescue. So it's 18 days in captivity for these people. And the attack happened on the 15th of May in Orire local government area of Oyo State, within the Ogbomoso axis of this. Ogbomoso alone has about 3 local governments, so it's a large expanse of place. Ogbomoso is bordered by Yenkori in Ilorin in Kwara State, meaning there's a proximity to Kwara State, but it's not exactly on the area where these bandits have really been attacking Kwara communities, because it's in the Irekpono Ifelodun area of Kwara State, which is closer to some part of Kogi, Ekiti, and Oshun. But it's on the other side, towards the Ilorin, that this attack happened. But it was coordinated, Mr. Bulama. And it happened in 3 rural communities of Harwe Sinle, Yawota, Alaosa, axis of Orire, LGA. Now, there are 3 schools that were involved. And this attack happened simultaneously. That means it was planned, premeditated. They used motorbikes. In fact, the man who resisted, who had motorcycle, they wanted to use it, he resisted, they killed him. Now, what do we know also? Over 40 people are in captivity. 39 pupils also, as 7 teachers. We understand that one of the teachers may have been killed in captivity. But all of these happened. How did they move them? Where did they move them to? All of these will be very critical. And the federal government has said 1,000 forest guards. The question is it too little, too late? Or what exactly do you make of federal government's response?
Yeah, I mean, I know slightly the area you describe, Sheun, because I have been to Ogomosho several times. I have been to the Ladoke Akintola University in Ogomosho for students' activities when I was a student at Bayero University several times. One thing you will notice, because I traveled by road, is that the roads are very bad and that the forests are densely forested. Many of the areas are densely forested, and that is the classic formula. That is the classic formula for violent extremist groups and terrorist groups. And you are right that the first few hours are very important, but also the first few days, because we know from the accounts, the narrative of the Chibok girls, from the Dapchi girls and others, that they worked for, or they were forced to work for days. I mean, they were only allowed to rest for a few hours, and then they were forced to work again, because they wanted to take them into the heart of the forest, where it will be very hard for our security forces to access them. And President Tinubu made a very important statement when he first got into office. He said the Nigerian army has to change their philosophy into guerrilla warfare rather than the conventional warfare they have been fighting. Our soldiers are still using heavy machinery, heavy equipment, heavy vehicle that find it very difficult to penetrate the forest, because it is muddy, because there are no access roads, and these groups are operating in smaller vehicles, lighter vehicles. Some of them walk a lot, and therefore it is very difficult to access them where you want to get them. But Sean, you also mentioned this question of the Safe Schools initiative. You and I have talked about this previously. The idea that you can isolate schools from the rest of the society and protect them from attacks while attacks continue in the rest of the society is a farcical idea. It's impossible. If you want to protect schools, you have to protect everyone in the society. That's why the Safe Schools initiative never worked, because there are hundreds of thousands of schools in Nigeria, primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions. And if you want to isolate each school and protect it, you have to deploy hundreds of soldiers with all the equipment and logistics that will need to protect just that school. Yeah. And that is practically impossible. And therefore, what you need is to tackle the root causes from the is to tackle these groups from the root, which is fighting them inside the forest. And finally, 1,000 forest guards may tactically be good, but strategically they are not going to work. We know that even our soldiers have found it very difficult to fight these groups. Forest guards that are not very well trained or armed cannot work or succeed in this kind of environment. Even though we know that they are aware of the local terrain, they are very good at the local geography because they are local, but you need training, you need experience. And when these kinds of attacks happen, Sheun, and then you have an announcement, the tendency is that you will prioritize the number, the figure of 1,000 over good vetting, good training, and proper arming them. Yeah. And if you don't do that, you are not going to succeed, unfortunately. We need to completely change our national security architecture, Sheun. Whatever we have done over the last 20 years has not worked. President Tinubu needs to work on the national security architecture and reform it just like he did to our tax system.
All right. So I'll allow you to go, but declining state of emergency like Khan is asking, is that another option that we could explore?
A state of emergency that is not backed by action is useless. All right. So if a state of emergency will be declared, Sheun, what you need is to use the powers. And you can use the powers a state of emergency will give you, even right now under the Terrorism Prevention Act. And so you don't need a state of emergency. If you are going to declare a state of emergency for the oil crisis, then you need to declare a state of emergency in more than 20 states in northern Nigeria as well. And that will not work if it is not backed by action.
Bulama Bukati is researched heavily and widely on violent extremism in Africa and helped to set up policies on extremism on the situation in northeastern Nigeria as a lawyer too and a security consultant. Many thanks to Mr. Bukati for joining us tonight on the program.
It's always a pleasure joining you, Sheun. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Let's speak more on this state of the nation, and I'm going to start off with this issue of security. There's one man who has now emerged as a presidential candidate of the Accord Party. He's a businessman, politician, and a former, well, we'll call him a former youth leader in the early days of the Fourth Republic, Mr. Gbenga Olawipo Hashim. He's live for us here in our studio. Many thanks for joining us tonight on the program.
My pleasure.
Appreciate your time. Let's kick off with this issue of security. And you are from Kwara State, and that part of the country has been heavily hit by some of these men. Now, Oyo State, who ever thought that this kind of situation would happen in Oyo State?
Well, I was making statements about 5 years ago on the fact that the whole North Central is encircled and that the next step will be Southwest. If you know geopolitical history, you will know that Old Oyo is actually located in present-day Kwara North. That's where you have Old Oyo, not in this present-day Oyo State. So the axis in Kwara, anything happening in the Barba area, Baratin, Kayama, where we saw a lot of killings, almost 200 people months ago. That's the base of this ISWAP group that is operating in the Kaji Lake National Park. Now, the summary of it is that Nigeria is under warfare that is guerrilla warfare in tactics, urban and rural, by an extremist group which has developed the capacity to create an ISIS-like state, the type you had in Syria. I made this statement. I've been making the same statements on almost every quarter. So you are not dealing with isolated kidnapping. Okay, you are dealing with a group that is allied to ISIS and that has the capacity, it has acquired the capacity to declare a terrorist state in most part of northern Nigeria. They are just trying to create a buffer zone in Oyo and Co. They've finished rounding up the rural areas in Kwara, in Kebbi, okay, in most of rural Niger, most of rural Kaduna. They have the capacity to declare a terrorist state. Now,
is that possible in the Nigeria that we are today?
Why is it not possible?
There was a time that our 18 local government was said to have been firmly under the capture of some of these terrorists. But the federal government has said there is no territory, there is no inch of Nigeria territory that is under the authority.
They collect taxes in most of northwest rural areas.
Lakurawa Group does that in parts of Sokoto.
They collect taxes. So when you say they don't control and they are collecting taxes, what exactly do you mean? Now let's start this denial. We are facing a terrorist aggression with a lot of experience while the political leadership has been sleeping. So we need not just piecemeal intervention and tactical response and talking about just, yeah, you must have, of course, a special force that has the capacity to do rescue when kidnappings take place. But beyond that, you need a broad security strategy that figures out the fact that this is a war.
Do you feel that the Nigeria security architecture is somewhat fundamentally broken? And if so, should state police...
Number one, you have a denier. You don't want to face the fact that you are fighting a war. And this is, you are fighting an insurgency that you're using urban and rural guerrilla warfare. So you need a counter-insurgency strategy. You understand? So it's not just kidnapping. It's more serious than what it has been defined. And so, as President and Commander-in-Chief, I will have a strategy to end this war.
How?
Yeah. Well, the point is that you are not going to be too detailed.
Are you trained in
you are not going to be too
security strategy
about this? Look, I did a master's in global affairs, and global security is core in it. And I was the best student in England, in Buckingham, on this. So this is something that I studied for 1 year, and I have the understanding of what is going on. So I'm not just blabbing. I'm not your regular politician.
Your 1 year study compared to those who have spent their entire life working as security
what you need
experts.
What you need as commander-in-chief is to have an idea of the economy, security. President Trump is not a security expert. He's commanding the largest army in the whole world. But you need a bit of understanding of everything. You need an understanding of finance. You need an understanding of economics. You need an understanding of international law, international relations. You need an understanding of a bit of everything to be able to be an efficient commander-in-chief. All right.
It's fundamentally broken, the security architecture, and you say you can fix it.
Yes, I can fix it, and I will fix it. So don't forget that. You see, one of the problems you have with the political leadership right now is that most of the leaders did not go through leadership training. In those days of yore, even before you rise to a certain level in the trade union movement, you would have been trained in NIPS, okay? You will understand what is national security. The problem we have now is that even most of the political leaders don't understand what is called national security. They don't. Because I see it in the way government formulates policies. Now, you can't deal with these things if you are loggerhead with your neighbors, Mali, with your neighbor, Niger, with your neighbors. Most of these inflow at the border, Chad, you must have an integrated strategy. So the first thing I'm going to do is to have an international conference on security. Here, not a local conference. You need the inputs of our neighbors, Chad. You need the inputs and cooperation of Niger. You need the input of Mali, Burkina Faso. You need a global cooperation because the Russians are dealing with this issue on behalf of Mali in the Sahel region. And you need the French too, who were part of the problem in the first place, because all this problem is also linked with what happened in Libya and the importation of a host of extremist groups to that area, and the clean-ups were not done. So these guys are advising all manners of groups all over the Sahel region, not just in Nigeria. So you are dealing with a more complicated crisis than people are able to admit.
It's not a failure of President Tinubu and his administration, is it? Because this is a Hydra-headed phenomenon.
No, it's a failure. When there is a problem, the job of the commander-in-chief is to fix it. You have a problem.
You've described...
All right? Nigeria has fixed this kind of problem on behalf of many nations. Nigeria went to Liberia and stopped the insecurity in Liberia. Nigeria was in Sierra Leone, stopped the insecurity in Sierra Leone. Nigeria was in Kosovo when you were having the Yugoslavian breakup and all kind of groups with... Nigeria was in Darfur. We don't have a stupid army. But you see, when the military does not see seriousness in the political leadership, and they're just going to be there, and then they need to see some level of patriotism. No soldier wants to die for a commander-in-chief that they don't know what he's doing. So you need the right political leadership to be able to inspire your troops, to be able to command the army. And then where you know that what you are dealing with is insurgency, you need to create an insurgency, a counter-insurgency force. Because the army, as everybody is saying, they are not trained to handle this kind of operation.
Right. Give me a moment. I need to go on a break. But when we return, economy is part of what those who will say some of these issues are issues of poverty and economy in some sense. But how do we handle these multi-pronged issues in several parts of our country today under the administration of President Bola Tinubu, which is now 3-year-old? I'll be asking my guest next on the solution, not only to security, to the economy. And we'll look ahead to the 2027 elections. We'll be back after this break, everyone. For Hashim is the presidential candidate of the Accord Party and is speaking with us. But there are people in the Accord Party who are contesting that you never imagined as a candidate. What exactly is going on?
Well, the people in ADC contesting as well that Atiku never imagined. So this is normal. Huh?
So was there a primary where you emerged?
Of course, there were. Number one, I was unopposed. Nobody was.
So it was a consensus arrangement.
And then number two, to go even beyond the consensus of a few people gathering, there were affirmative votes in various states. The same kind of direct primary that you had President Tinubu contesting. And you had over 700,000 members of Accord Party voting. A lot of people who used to think Accord Party was a party of 51,000 people, they have not come to the reality that in the past 2 months of our movement in the party, a whole number of our supporters, over 1 million people are registered in Accord Party. And if you saw the pictures, some of your colleagues also covered it, coming from Plateau, coming from Kebbi, coming from Lagos, People came out, they voted. In some of the states, INEC officials were there to observe. So anyone can say whatever they like, but I think that process is closed now. And the rest is how to move forward and face the general election. But you see, what we're discussing today, I think, is more serious than even the elections. Okay. Election is going to be...
You have intention of wanting to be president.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there are those who imagine that the Atiku Abubakars of this world, Peter Obi, the President Tinubu, or in the leading contention for the election. What makes you think that you're qualified to govern this country? It's a very complex country, isn't it?
Number one, I'm not as regionally limited as all of them. I have a thorough understanding of Nigeria because I have both parentage. My father is Hausa, my mother is Yoruba, especially from Ogbomoso, the same place where my mother comes from. So I don't share the limitation of most of these candidates who think about Nigeria within a limited worldview of their own cultural experience. Two, I've been in politics before any one of these people you mentioned. I've been in politics since 1982, even when I was just, in the secondary school. We had our parties following CEO Adebayo, So I have more political experience, more than these people you are talking about. I may not have held position as a senator or governor, which I think is a blessing. All right? Nigerians want to see somebody that has not been involved in the mess that the political system has been. I've largely had my experience as a political operative in political parties, but not one who has been senator or governor and or what have you. I have stayed doing my business, creating value, and building the kind of things that you need to fix Nigeria, building industry, building oil firm, building power plants. That's what I've been doing for the past 35 years as a businessman. And so no one can find a scandal pinned on my name. And this is what most Nigerians want to see. They don't want to see those who have been X this, X that, and they cannot bring any profound achievements in their track record to the table.
Mr. The campaigns are not here yet. So,
I reminded you that we should focus on the issues that are here.
He who comes to equity. If you say you have better idea, it's only fair to say, who are you? What can you do?
Absolutely.
Do you have what it takes? But let me take you to one. We've talked about security, and you said you've gotten some education about how you can fix the security situation of Nigeria.
And also because you are dealing with this is counterinsurgency. It's not irregular warfare. You understand? And if you have an understanding of a little bit of history, people like us understand what these guys are doing.
So you know what the problem is?
Yeah. Because we have been in their shoes before under the military. Yeah. This is not the first time you are going to have groups that are doing. Isaac Adakaboro was doing it. So it's not new, really. It's just that the people who are handling it are not very focused. And I can't see the patriotism and the commitment that is needed, to deal with it.
I mean, I would love to know how we can, and it's the third year of the administration of President Bola Tinubu, just few days, 3 years and few days. The government has pointed to GDP growth, increased state revenues, more money to the federating unit, renewed investor
GDP
confidence.
Growth in real terms. We have lost
but the figures,
30% of our... Listen, if you were, and we're back to what we said some months ago here, if you inherited a GDP of, let's say, 492 billion under Jonathan, and then the APC crashes it to around 300 billion US dollars or thereabouts. And after 1 year, you now move it from 300 billion to maybe 321 billion. You call that growth? If you have not really restored it to the level where you took it when you took power as APC, you cannot be talking about growth. And if you're talking about growth from the kind of contraction in the GDP that we witness under the 12 to 15 years of APC rule, you should be talking about phenomenal double-digit growth. Obasanjo achieved 14.5% growth in the economy. So you cannot be talking about Mickey Mouse growth of 2%, 3% after crashing the GDP and contracting the GDP by over 30%. So they are not being honest with the figures that they are posting. But I want us to look forward, not just to be analyzing what they have not done. I mean, what are we going to do differently? For you to have real growth, you need to grow the manufacturing sector from less than 10% of the GDP to at least about 20%. And you can only achieve that if you do some financial engineering. You cannot grow the manufacturing sector with 32% interest rate. Okay, interest rate has to come down to single digit. And we will have an alignment between the monetary and fiscal authority to achieve that, so that people can take money for the real sector. Mr.
Mr. Olaribo, you do not agree with the figures, official figures about the state of the economy.
I don't.
But global economic organizations agree.
Well,
they invite, just a moment, sir. Just a moment, sir.
IMF, World Bank, they have been doing this thing, and that's what got us to this place.
You think
no
those
serious,
organizations...
But
there is a rating of Nigeria by a global firm which is renowned to rate and grade countries of the world. And
how does that align with job losses?
I like you to be able to give an evidence on how you think that the government of the day cooked the books in terms of the economic
I don't want to join issues.
You think they cooked the books?
I think I've already made my point.
Do you think they cooked the books? Is that your point?
Let's talk about what we need to do.
Because
instead of wasting our precious time
the baseline
on what they have not done right.
The indicators are important for you to be able to gauge where you are. If the indices, according to you, is cooked by the government, we need to know. Is that what you believe, that this government has cooked the books?
Well, whatever figures they have sent out does not make any sense. And I've just told you, if under Jonathan, GDP was 574 billion in 2014, and then when it was going contracted in 2015 to 494, and now you have it less than 300, how can you be talking about growth?
So you don't agree?
No, it's common sense.
It
depends on your reference year for the growth. If you are picking 2023 numbers, then you will say there is growth. But that is deceptive. I want to take a totality of where we are, where we were coming from.
Yeah.
So I measure real growth in that sense. Not just to say, oh, we took the 2023, it became 335. Now it is 337. Was that what it was 15 years ago?
You look at the manufacturing sector, and you look at the figures coming from the non-oil sector growth, and what Nigerians are added into the economy based on. I can only talk about the fact.
You see, you are still taking me back.
Just for a moment, let me, if I may put my question.
Yeah.
You have touched on industrialization. You said your focus will be on manufacturing. What kind of manufacturing will give you a drastic growth within a 1 year window, for example?
If you align the monetary policy with the fiscal policy, and you kick up with a single-digit interest rate, you will see phenomenal growth. I said, Obasanjo, we are not talking about what has not been done before. In 2003, Nigeria achieved 4.5% growth in the GDP. So how can you be talking about 2%, 3%? This is Mickey Mouse sum. That's not what we need to do where we are now to escape poverty. We need bigger numbers of growth. And you cannot achieve that level of growth with 32% interest rate. What can you do with 32% lending rates? Huh? Except kidnapping. Even armed robbery. You cannot make profit from it. You take money at 32%. It's only kidnapping. When you keep people for a long time, they will find the money. Because even if you go on armed robbery operation, you may not be able to find money when you attack a house, to be honest. So, most of the problem of insecurity, the frustration in the country, the recruits that Boko Haram and all these guys are getting is also because of the state of the economy. You have 18 million young people out of school. The ones who are even in school are not secure. So 18 million out of school children, those are potential recruits for all kinds of extremist groups. So economic growth in real numbers, job creation is crucial. And that is fundamental in my own thinking. I developed a 4 trillion size economic growth in 8 years program. That's the plan. And it is doable.
But I mean, I asked you a question. You have not actually directly answered that question because
what is your question? Or maybe I didn't want to answer it.
Maybe you're dodging away from answering it. Because I know when there's industrialization, one thing that is directly in effect is jobs. Yeah. Jobs will be created. Yes. Because those who are in those sectors will naturally have to manage. And I'm asking that what kind of manufacturing industrialization can you achieve within 1 year window, for example? I need an example. Because that will tell me what raw materials do we have, what is the marketplace for.
Now, let me tell you the simplest low-hanging fruit before even we go to manufacturing, because you need time to do industry. You can get your growth even from the oil sector. Right now, we are producing 1.6 million barrels per day. We have 1,600 shut-in wells. If you have used the money they are wasting on some coastal road that is not going to bring the money back, if you have put that in MPDC and get the shut-in well operating, in 2 years, you will achieve 3 to 4 million barrels of oil per day. That will give you more than 100% growth in 2-3 years. And in a year, you could even achieve in the oil sector almost 100% growth. If you put that money by opening the shut-in wells, the wells are there, the hydrocarbons are there, the gas are there, they are only shut-in. They need some investment which is being wasted. $5 billion investment instead of $14 billion on coastal road will bring 500,000 of barrels of oil into production in a day. That's my business. I understand it.
Let me, what's your position on debt? There are those economics analysts who would say, look, you need to borrow yourself out of the economic quagmire. But you look at what is going on, we just look by the figures that we are still in the safe bracket of borrowing to our GDP.
Well, yeah. You see, this is not the issue. The issue is not whether borrowing is a sin. This issue is what you do with the money that you are borrowed.
So you agree with the Tinubu government's concept of borrowing?
It's not a sin, but what are you borrowing for? If you borrow to kickstart the productive sector, in which case the money can come back. Say, for instance, the practical thing that I have said now. If you are going to take $5 billion and you are taking NMPC assets to collateralize, but you are spending the money on something else, not increasing production, how do you pay back? If you take $5 billion to coastal road that may not be finished in many years, it's just like you are wasting money. But if you put the same $5 billion, okay, in MPDC, you will have 500,000 barrels of oil produced at this high, and then you don't even have any feeling that you have borrowed. So the question is, what are you borrowing?
What would you borrow for?
Is not
if you become president, what would you borrow for?
I've told you one practical thing. You understand? And to be honest, it is not just about borrowing. You know, when we were in 1999, when the military went away, we took a decision as a government that we should cap borrowing. President Obasanjo exited Nigeria's debt.
Yeah.
Our debt was nearly zero. You know what we did? We were using our sovereign instrument to encourage private investment in infrastructure area. What that means is that you give them comfort for the market. And it only takes about 30% of the value of the investment they are doing. So you are not borrowing money to put money in the hands of civil servants.
I have only 35 seconds
Thank
to
you,
close.
please.
But this is my last question for you. If President Bola Tinubu were to be seated right here in this studio tonight and has challenged you directly by saying Nigeria is better today than when he took office in 2023, would you agree with him? And if not, what would you present to him to prove him wrong? And what evidence would you convince Nigeria that you could do better?
I think it's not a question I would like to answer. You should answer that question.
Do you
go on the street and ask this people?
Is Nigeria better?
The people who are in the studio here.
I'm asking if the president told you that Nigeria today is better than when he took, would you agree?
How would you say Nigeria that was exchanging 700 naira to a dollar under Buhari is now 1,003 plus? You say Nigeria is better.
So you think Nigeria is not better today?
Nigeria is worse under President Tinubu.
We need to leave it
economically, in terms of security. Over 18,000 people have lost their life to kidnapping and terrorist-related incidents in the past 3 years.
Mr. Benga Olawepo Hashim is the Accord Party presidential candidate. Thanks so much indeed. I love to have conversation around policy with you.
Yes, but we don't always have time.
There's never enough time. But thank you so much indeed.
God bless you.
That's our show for today, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimale. God bless Nigeria.